silence. For most people, it's just the absence of sound. But for Ayla, it was the only world she'd ever known. She was born deaf. While other children learned to speak and sing, Ayla learned to see. She saw things most people missed: the tremble of a leaf before the wind blew, the subtle shift in a person's eyes before they smiled, the silent rhythm of rain falling on rooftops. Her world wasn't filled with noise. It was filled with color. From a young age, Ayla found her voice in painting. When her brush touched the canvas, she didn't need words. Her heart spoke through vibrant hues and bold strokes. Her mother, a kind woman who sold vegetables at the local market, was her biggest supporter. They didn't have much, but every few months, she would save just enough to buy Ayla a small set of paints. Ayla painted on anything she could find: scraps of paper, old cardboard boxes, even the walls of their small home. Each surface became a new opportunity to speak. But as she grew older, the world outside became less understanding. People would admire her art, but their expressions changed the moment they learned she couldn't hear or speak. Some pitied her, some ignored her completely. Others would whisper, thinking she couldn't understand. She's talented, but how can she ever succeed? She can't even talk to her own customers. She saw their lips move, and the words landed like tiny stones on her heart. Each rejection, each look of pity, cast another shadow. Her mother would always hold her close and sign, "Your art will speak for you, my love. One day, the world will listen." But Ayla was beginning to doubt. No one seemed to be listening now. She gathered her best pieces and submitted them to local art galleries. The rejections came swiftly. Some were polite, form letters filled with empty praise. Others didn't bother to reply at all. One gallery owner, a man with a dismissive smile, even laughed softly. "We need artists who can articulate their vision," he said, "not someone we have to interpret." That night, Ayla returned home, the man's words echoing in the quiet of her mind. She sat before a blank canvas, but for the first time in her life, she didn't know what to paint. The white surface felt vast and mocking. She felt small, invisible. In her sketchbook, she wrote a single, heartbreaking sentence: "If they can't hear me, maybe my art isn't loud enough." For weeks after that, her brushes gathered dust. The room that once blazed with color felt cold, muted, and gray. Her silence, once a world of beauty, now felt like an empty cage. One quiet afternoon, as she sat by her window watching the sky fade from orange to purple, a small boy from the neighborhood ran up to her door, clutching a broken kite. He couldn't speak her language of signs, but his meaning was clear. He pointed to the torn fabric and then gestured, a hopeful look in his eyes, asking if she could draw something on it. Ayla hesitated. The dust on her brushes felt like a monument to her failure. But looking at the boy's earnest face, a flicker of something long dormant stirred within her. She smiled, a real smile, and led him inside. For the first time in weeks, she picked up her brushes. The familiar weight in her hand felt like coming home. She began to paint. A magnificent fiery bird, a phoenix, emerged from the fabric, its wings spread wide, rising from a blaze of crimson and gold. The boy's eyes grew wide with wonder as he watched the creature come to life. The next day, Ayla saw him running through the streets, the phoenix kite soaring high above the town, a brilliant splash of defiance against the blue sky. People stopped in their tracks to look up. Children clapped. Someone in the crowd asked, "Wow, who painted that?" Ayla stood at her window, watching it all, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled. Something inside her had reignited. That night, she opened her sketchbook to the page that held her despair. Below the words, "Maybe my art isn't loud enough," she added a new line, a promise to herself. "Then I'll paint louder." From that day on, Ayla began working on something new, something bold, something big. Near the town market stood an old, abandoned building, a gray, cracked, and forgotten eyesore. Ayla decided to turn that wall into her masterpiece. Every morning, before the sun rose, she would carry her paints and brushes to that spot. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't tell a soul. She simply began to paint. She worked in silence, day after day, losing herself in the motion. At first, people walked by with curious glances, unsure what to make of the lone girl and the sprawling wall. But slowly, an image began to emerge from the chaos of color-vibrant strokes of blue, gold, and crimson breathing life into the dead concrete. Soon, children would gather after school just to watch her work. A local shopkeeper started bringing her a bottle of water every afternoon. Her mother would visit each evening, her smile radiant with pride. No words were needed between them. The growing mural said it all. The artwork expanded, telling a story only Ayla could tell. It showed a young girl born without ears, standing in a world of gray. And from her, bursting into the sky, were waves of magnificent color, transforming into a flock of birds. Each bird was a different hue, a different shape, representing a sound she'd never heard: laughter, music, a loving voice, all flying free. The mural was Ayla's autobiography, painted for the world to see, without a single word. The day she finally finished, it felt as though the whole town had gathered around the wall. As the sun began to set, its golden light hit the mural, making the colors glow like embers. It was breathtaking. Even the mayor came to see it. He stood in stunned silence, completely captivated. Finally, he turned and asked, "Who is the artist? Who painted this?" The crowd parted, and all eyes turned to Ayla. She stood quietly, her clothes stained with a rainbow of paint, her heart pounding in her chest. She smiled and placed a hand over her heart in gratitude. The mayor approached, and Ayla's mother quickly signed to him that her daughter couldn't hear. He nodded with understanding and said, "Please tell her. She has given this town its voice back." For the first time in her life, Ayla felt something she had longed for more than anything: not pity, not sympathy, but respect. Soon, pictures of her mural, the wall that spoke without sound, spread across social media like wildfire. Art magazines wrote about the silent painter who created such a powerful noise. Schools invited her to paint murals on their walls and to speak through an interpreter about her art and her incredible journey. Ayla became a beacon of strength for others living in their own worlds of silence. She started teaching art to children with disabilities, telling them through her expressive signs, "You don't need words to tell your story. You only need courage." The same gallery owners who had once dismissed her now clamored for her work. But Ayla remained humble. She never painted for fame or fortune. She painted to remind the world that silence has its own beauty, that emotion doesn't need a sound to be felt. Years later, a journalist asked her what message she wanted to share with the world. Ayla took out her notepad and wrote, "The world told me my silence was empty, so I filled it with color." You can fill your silence, too, with whatever it is that makes your heart feel alive. She smiled, holding her brush in her hand, a voice that had never, ever failed her. Because in the end, Ayla was never voiceless. She just spoke a different language. And when the world finally learned to listen, her silence became her greatest strength. Sometimes the world won't hear you. Sometimes people will doubt you, reject you, or underestimate your power. But remember, this silence is not weakness. Your voice doesn't have to be loud to be heard. You don't need sound to make a noise. You don't need ears to feel the music of life. And you certainly don't need anyone's permission to chase your dream. You just need to start with whatever you have and keep painting your truth. Be like Ayla. Let your silence speak louder than words. Thank you so much for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more content that inspires. We'll see you in the next one.